Bienvenidos, señoras y señores, to another episode of the Bleed Lows podcast. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your championship finals info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines and the latest matchup reports for this year's NBA and Stanley Cup finals. BetOnline is your sports intel headquarters this season, as we have you covered on all your insider sports wagering needs, from basketball and hockey to MLB, UFC, and boxing. It's the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your home. So get into the action today. Head to the website or use your mobile device to join, and be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, to receive your 50% bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. Bienvenidos, sangrones, to the Carne Asada en Vivo. We are live. And I just want to put that out there for those of you who are listening or watching the show. Someone who listens to the show referred to themselves as a sangron. Now that kind of translates into not a very good person. So for those you guys watching the show, you regulars, send me a message and say if that's an appropriate thing that you guys want to be referred to as sangrones. If not, we'll kill it. We won't make it happen. We won't bring it up. But joining us on the show, as always, is La Princesa de Picolandia, Babyface, and then our favorite Bleed Lows podcast contributor, the Boatman, Jason Barquero. Jason, how are you? Good to have you back.
Thank you. Good to be here. I'm doing great.
So now that Jason's on the show, I'm not going to be the bad guy. So that makes me feel good.
Buffer one.
No, Jason, what you do is you bring balance to the force. That's what happens is because Jason keeps it real. He speaks the truth, and that's always important on this show. So in this 6-game stretch that we're going to cover the Dodgers and the Yankees, and we're going to cover the Dodgers and the Rojos. And it was not a very good 6-game stretch for the Dodgers. The Dodgers ended up going 2-4, losing 2 out of 3 to the Yankees, and then losing 2 out of 3 to the Rojos. I think the common thing in this was the pitching was not good, especially in Cincinnati. But Kershaw pitched well on Friday against the Yankees, and after that, I mean, Michael Grove, I don't think pitched bad. It's just he made 2 mistakes, and it was enough for the Dodgers to lose because the offense just wasn't there. And then Sunday, Bobby Miller pitched great, but unfortunately the bullpen was not able to pull through on Sunday. And then the bullpen pulled what they pulled in Cincinnati. So I'm putting it out there to you guys. There seems to be some pitching issues on this team, but I don't know if you guys saw Dave Roberts' interview after Tuesday's game. Not Tuesday's. Yeah. It was Tuesday's game when they lost, when they blew that 5-run lead. And it seemed like Dave Roberts was throwing everyone under the bus. Like this was a Dave Roberts where he was pointing fingers. And I think the pressure is starting to get to Dave Roberts because we saw that he was drinking. Did anybody see that video? He had a Modelo on his desk. They started recording and the bottle was empty. The bottle was empty. So I don't know if Dave Roberts chugged it before Spectrum Sportsnet LA came in, but the bottle was empty and then he moved it out of the shot. But it was all over Twitter. You could see that he was drinking. So he needed to take a drink, or he had to have a whole beer before he started talking to the media. Princesa, do the Dodgers have a problem in the bullpen, or do they have a problem managing the bullpen?
Okay, first of all, if anyone deserves a Modelo, it's Dave Roberts, because you'd have to pick me up off the floor if I had to manage this team. It is definitely the pitching, and I think they're going to be able to right the ship. You know, you got the injuries, and then you've got Thor, and then the bullpen. They're taxed, but it's still early. So what is your favorite saying, Juan? Like, don't panic. Like,
no pasa nada. So La Princesa is telling you, no pasa nada. Everything is fine.
Well, it's going to be fine. I'm not panicking yet because it's still early. And yes, it sucks to lose to the Yankees, but thankfully I went to the first game where they won, so I was spoiled. How about Kershaw? Let's focus on the positive, yeah?
Okay, before we focus on the positive, I want to get the Boatman's thoughts on this. Jason, is it a problem? I know Michael Carrillo on the live. Simeon's watching from Chick-fil-A, which is great. Michael thinks it's both, but being that you are the staunchest defender of Dave Roberts on this show, Jason, do the Dodgers have a bullpen problem, or is it they just are not managing? And I say this because Caleb Ferguson, I think, was hung out to dry on that game on Tuesday to face the majority of right-handed hitters. I know a lot of people were like, why didn't you come in with Shelby Miller? But is it just that they're not using that bullpen because they haven't named a closer? Like, what's going on, Jason? Inquiring minds want to know.
The bullpen sucks.
Whoa.
That's it. I just came on for that one. Have a good evening, everyone.
He's out.
You can quote me on that. No, here, look. The bullpen's not where it's going to be. It needs a lot of help. It's hemorrhaging and it needs a lot of help. It is what it is. I'm going to cut Dave Roberts a little bit of slack on this one.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack here. You know, it's you can't perform miracles with what he has. You know, I think they've exhausted what they have. Is he an amazing manager of pitchers and in-game moves? I don't know. I've never been a fan of his in-game moves and what have you, but he does leave guys out there a little too long. Dave Roberts is a guy that coaches from his heart. I've always said that since day one. And I'll be serious for a moment here. I think the same things that make him very successful are some of the same things that also end up biting him in the butt. And what I mean by that is if you talk to players, I'm sure they're saying they love the guy. He's a player's coach. They love playing for the guy. And I think that's what's helped the Dodgers maintain the success they've had over several years. I'll give him that much. But at the same time, because I think he coaches from his heart, I think he leaves guys out there too long. He plays guys that shouldn't be playing anymore. I mean, when you have, a guy hitting .095 in your lineup, I mean, you can pick any high school kid right now. They can probably do better than that.
Who are you talking about, Boatman?
Oh, let me see. Let me pull the stat. Who do you think we're talking about? I can read. I pulled numbers this time around because I wanted to make sure I wasn't being misquoted. But who do we have here? Yeah, it's Austin Barnes, my favorite catcher. That guy has no business in Major League Baseball. So we'll get to Austin Barnes in a second. But that is an example of how Dave Roberts feels for the guy. He knows he has a guy like Cartaya waiting in the wings. He deserves a beer for having to wait on a guy that's hitting below 100. Anyway, so to answer your question, Dave Roberts, not a fan, but the bullpen, he doesn't have a lot. He just doesn't have a lot to go with here.
Babyface. Okay, wait. Let me go to the Princesa.
I just wanted to comment on Caleb Ferguson. So, yes, I know that is a major complaint of Roberts is that he leaves pitchers in too long or he takes them out too early. That's been following him around for many seasons. But Caleb Ferguson the other night, I feel – and you tell me if you agree, Jason. I think that they left him in because just to see what he can do. Like it's this. We're in June. You still got a lot of season left. The closing situation isn't solid, and our bullpen is struggling. And so I feel like when you say hang him out to dry, like hardcore, like literally, like they weren't going to take him out. They were going to see how he handled it, and it is obvious that that's not where he belongs, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think sometimes managers, and not just Dave Roberts, I think they like to test their players and see if they can get themselves out of situations. I'd love to know more how that bodes well, though, with players, especially starting pitchers, when you end up losing a win because your manager, didn't protect that win. You're now down 2 games to the Arizona Diamondbacks. For goodness sake. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Game and a half.
Sorry. So,
it's positives right here.
There you go. Let's focus on the positive. Yeah.
All right, babyface. Is it a bullpen problem or is Roberts not managing this bullpen correctly?
Bullpen problem. That game, though, I think I don't know what he did in the 9th. We're going with Caleb with all those righties coming in, but prior to that, right, they had an 8-3 lead right after the 4th. So call me old school, But I think when you bring in relievers after that, they should be able to hold on to a lead, right? They might give up a run or two, but I don't think that they should give up the entire lead that they have, right? And every inning except the eighth, when Evan Phillips came in, they gave up a run and they gave up another run and they kept crawling back and crawling back and crawling back. And that, I think, was what lost them the game, right? Obviously, like I said, that situation with Caleb, like coming in to pitch against all the rights when stats, right, where the numbers, where all the analytics say, hey, you should be bringing in Shelby Miller right there. That kind of didn't make sense. Like, all of a sudden, Dave Roberts is like, no, I'm throwing out the stat, but the analytics, and I'm going to go, my gut is Caleb right here. I mean, that kind of didn't make sense, right? But like I said, call me old school. I think the bullpen should have held on to that lead regardless.
Real quick, Jason, before I go to you, Michael Carrillo chiming in with Ozzie Guillen as a possible manager. Raul, welcome to the show. Raul was like, well, who do you replace Dave with? Michael Carrillo, again, it was like, realistically, half the bullpen needs to be DFA'd. Here is my issue with all of this. Yes, the bullpen, I think, goes through stretches. They're inconsistent. They have their ups. They have their downs. My issue with this is how Roberts came out after those guys. He called out Gonsolin. He went after Gonsolin hard for not being able to give him more than 5 innings, right? He went hard on Caleb Ferguson. And Princesa, to your point, yeah, I think maybe they're testing it. But, dude, Roberts in that post-game interview said, yeah, he doesn't give me any faith because he let the umpire get affect him by not getting calls. He clearly got rattled. So my thing is this. There's other players on the Dodgers that aren't performing, and I don't see Roberts with that same type of energy for those players. Now, I could be wrong. If those of you guys on the live, if you think Roberts is going after those guys with the same energy as he went after Gonsolin and Ferguson, then you let me know, which segues me to our next topic with Noah Syndergaard going on the IL. Now, the issue with Syndergaard's finger is legit. It is a real legit injury. Now, if that heals, is Noah Syndergaard going to pitch better? Probably not. It seems like Noah Syndergaard is done. Why not that same energy for Syndergaard? Why not being like, hey, Syndergaard only pitched 3 innings? Syndergaard, and like he says it, but there's just like, there's no that same type of energy. And I'm wondering how that plays in the bullpen, because it's exactly what you were saying, Jason. Roberts is a player's manager, right? He gives people the leash. People like playing for him. Even Noah Syndergaard was saying glowing things about Roberts, the previous one, where it was like the saddest Christmas ever, where he pitched bad again. But I mean, Princesa, am I wrong? Were you a little bit surprised at all with how Roberts came? Now, it might have been the Modelo talking, but I mean, the way he came at, poor Gonsolin. Gonsolin's actually been pitching pretty good. Why is Gonsolin your whipping boy?
Well, but Gonsolin's I guess Gonsolin might be held to a higher standard. He should be held to a higher standard. What has Thor shown us where he has that same level of expectations? The expectations for Thor are way lower. And so, plus, I mean, you said the saddest Christmas ever. I just feel so bad for Thor. I feel so bad. And maybe Dave has, sentimental feelings for him. Like, why kick a man when he's down? It's not going to make him pitch better. We needed Thor to give the bullpen a rest, to fill out the roster. And so, yeah, there's a lot of pressure. And you said it yourself, maybe that's why Roberts had the Modelo. Like, we're seeing it, right? There's a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces. And just when you think something lines up, something else goes wrong. So there's a lot happening. And I don't know why he singled out Gonsolin. I'm just assuming that day, at that moment, your expectations for the Catman are way higher than Thor. That's just what I'm thinking.
Boatman, are we maybe angry at the wrong person? Is Roberts being the scapegoat? Shouldn't this be directed a little bit at Friedman? Because he's the guy who constructed this roster. So, I mean, you guys all think the bullpen, I mean, Michael Carrillo thinks they should be DFA'd. I mean, is that really Roberts' fault? So all this anger that's directed at Roberts, shouldn't it be directed at Friedman?
Yeah. First thing I want to say though is, can we stop calling him Thor? He sucks. Ant-Man would be better, and that's insulting Ant-Man. But besides the point, yeah, you lose your rights to Thor. When you can't there's no hammer being thrown. But the thing, not at all. No, I agree with you. I think, Alicia, I think there might be something behind the scenes that we don't know, right? And that there might have been a scuffle. Maybe he might have been shown up by the Catman that we don't know. And this is Robert's way of I don't want to say retaliating, but letting him know who's boss, which I don't mind. I think you need that kind of interaction sometimes with the players. Going back to your question though, absolutely. And I said that I think the very first time I was on the show, I was very critical, more so of Andrew Friedman than Dave Roberts. Only because we just didn't see anything happen in the offseason, right? I almost felt, and I'll say it again, that they went into this season almost knowing that this was not going to be the year, almost like a transition year for the Shohei Ohtani show, which I hear is going to start sometime this year. So,
the Shohei Ohtani show.
Yes, he's teeing it up for you guys. But while we wait for that show to get started, nothing was happening, and I think now this team has overperformed my expectations. I did not expect them to have been this good. I had said that before, so I'll admit they're playing better than I thought they would. I still believe San Diego's going to catch them up. I think they're going to get hot. But to answer your question, yeah, I think they thought they were going to roll the dice with a couple of guys like Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts to lead the charge, and don't worry about the 6 through 9. They're going to be fine. And so far they've been producing. I actually feel bad for those guys that a lot of run production in Cincinnati, and you lose 2 out of 3 to the Reds. When you produce that amount of runs, you should be winning those ball games. So yeah, I am looking at Andrew Friedman and saying what happened here. They're hemorrhaging in the starting staff with their injuries, like Alicia said, but they're not as deep as they have been in the past, right? We've been able to overcome those injuries because we've had such depth, and we don't. And now we're seeing what happens when you don't build up in the offseason.
Let's go to Mr. Positivity, Babyface. Babyface, I put that out to you. I mean, the crazy thing is they could have actually swept the Rojos. They score 8 runs in that first game. They score 6 runs in that second game. If they would have done what the pitchers normally do, they sweep the Reds. They end up having a 4-2 stretch, and everything is fine in Los Angeles. There's not a problem. So, I mean, whose head are we calling for? Is it Roberts or is it Friedman? Or no pasa nada, everything is fine, this is just a speed bump?
Yeah, I'm going to go with no pasa nada, because we kind of discussed this earlier in the season when the pitching staff wasn't at full strength and they were kind of playing like, so-and-so ball, right? They're a 500 team, right? And then kind of when the Julio went down, like, is the same thing kind of happened again? Then you have the Thor issue. I think as Julio comes back this weekend, Thor's out. You're going to have Miller replace him, right? And then I think you should keep Grove as your long man and maybe a six starter just to have in there and kind of just keep that consistent. But, going back to the bullpen, I mean, they didn't work on the bullpen because the bullpen was lights out last year. So they didn't see a need to work on the bullpen. And which is kind of odd because Friedman has always said that relievers, they're iffy. Like 1 year they're good, 1 year they aren't. So like he kind of went with the expectation that these guys are going to carry over to this year being good, right? And we haven't seen that from guys like Yency, right? He struggled. I mean, Phillips has been good, but he's had his occasional bumps here and there, right? Brusdar, I have no idea what's going on with Brusdar. I mean, half the time he's throwing a ball to who knows where. So, I mean, I don't know what's going on with the bullpen, right? Like Vesia's had his struggles. He's come back. He looks, he's been last 3 outings that he didn't give up anything, but he's been kind of, shaky. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with that bullpen to fix it. I mean, are they waiting on, Daniel Hudson to come back? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you can do with the bullpen right now. It's like they got to start stepping up to fix it.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I want to go back to something Alicia said earlier about the bullpen being taxed, and I have to agree with you, and we agree really with both what you are saying too, Roger, and I think it goes hand in hand. They didn't need to make any moves perhaps for the bullpen because the bullpen was very solid last year, but the starting staff, we knew that the starting staff was just wasn't there, and I think we're seeing what happens when you don't have a strong starting 5. You're going to tax your bullpen. And that's what I think we're seeing, is because of the lack of really reinforcing your starting five. The bullpen is they're being taxed now. And I think that's part of it. I'm trying to make excuses for them, but I think that's part of what we're seeing. But the rotation was nothing exciting, knowing that there was injury, knowing that Buehler's still out. We should have signed not Syndergaard, for goodness sakes. That wasn't going to be your savior. You can carry a guy like that if you already have 4 really strong starters that you can rely on. We could not have. The surprise for me is Kershaw. Continues to be the surprise. I have to admit, I gave up on the guy about 2 years ago. And right now, he's the LeBron James right now, where he's getting older and he's actually now peaking back up again and looking very strong. And it's amazing. And it shouldn't be that way. I mean, he's not supposed to. I think he would even tell you, I'm not supposed to be the ace anymore at this point. I'm supposed to be one of you guys. He's probably looking at the youngers going like, what's going on, guys? You guys are supposed to be taking the helm. He's your ace all of a sudden. Now, Bobby Miller's a whole different topic, but that's what we're seeing, I think. I think because of the lack of starting pitching, the bullpen is getting a little tired.
Princesa, so do you agree that that's what the starting rotation should be from this point on? It should be Kershaw. It should be Gonsolin. It should be Julio's coming back on Sunday, allegedly, against the Phillies of Philadelphia, Michael Grove, and Bobby Miller. Is that what you think should be the starting rotation for going on from this point on?
Well, yes. And what choice do we have, right?
Well, we can keep throwing Syndergaard out there and hoping something different happens.
He's on the IL now, right? So, yeah, I mean, I'm so happy for Kershaw. And thank you, Jason, for giving him props, because I know it's really hard for you to give Kershaw. I'm just kidding. No, but
how could you possibly say that?
Because I am such a staunch defender of Kershaw. Like, you have no idea how often I have to like roll up my sleeves and be like, look. So I'm very happy for him that he's doing Kershaw things. It's Kershaw Day, thank goodness. But yeah, to answer your question, Juan, what choice do we have? We've got to go with that and hope that. I mean, you just answered the question that you asked me earlier, why Roberts went off on Gonsolin. He should be giving at least 5 innings. 6 innings, solid, right?
Oh, okay, so but when you say what other choice do we have, isn't that a problem? Because what if Kershaw goes down? What if Gonsolin goes down? Like, who else are we pulling up from the minor leagues? Now, I want to give a shout out to Nick Robertson, who looked great against the Rojos. And I know everybody's like, hey, there we go. We found our savior for the bullpen. All right. Pump the brakes, everybody. Yeah, he looked great. It was 2 innings. My concern, and you can ask James Outman, is once this league gets tape on you and they make adjustments to you, it's really hard to make the adjustment back. So that's what I'm saying, Princesa. It's like, you're right. What choice? And it goes back to like, hey, Roberts, these are the cards you're dealt. This is what you have to play with. Again, to me, it's like, shouldn't we be yelling at Friedman? Like, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel every time the Dodgers lose, Friedman goes in there and chews Roberts out. So by the time Roberts comes out, that's why he has a Modelo in his hand, because he's just like, fuck this bullshit. You're the one who got me into this mess, and now I got to deal with it. So
did you see Michael Carrillo's comments? You can't do what we did last year and wait for IL guys to come back.
Yeah.
So are you guys saying that they need to go get somebody?
Well, I know the guys on the live are counting down to the trade deadline.
Right.
So that's another concern for me, because now it's coming up. Hey, guys, I think we got a lot of holes. Now, David Peralta has turned things around. He's actually starting to hit. But you still have parts of the outfield that aren't producing. Miguel Rojas went down. We don't know how long he's going to go down for. So that means Chris Taylor, who, by the way, has now matched the same amount of home runs he hit this year, is the same amount of home runs he had last year. So he's matched that. But now he might have to be your everyday shortstop. look, these injuries I feel are sometimes you might have to just say this is just too much to overcome, because if you guys are telling me we need bullpen help, if you guys are telling me we're going to need another starter, I think we're going to probably need to address the outfield, right? I mean, this is what I found crazy the other day. They're sitting there raving about Jason Hayward, that Jason Hayward is having the best offensive season that he's had in years. Jason Hayward is hitting 230 something.
Right.
He has 6 home runs and 13 RBIs. Is that how we've fallen now? That we'll take that. That's awesome. Yes. Yeah. I mean, he's Babe Ruth. Put him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. The margin of error for this team is much smaller than it was last year. And I just don't know when it comes to the trade deadline, if you got to buy everything in the store, do you have enough food stamps to do that? I mean, that's the thing, right?
Jason, I mean, first of all, the Dodgers don't have food stamps. They spend money. I just think sometimes the analytics.
I'm trying not to laugh at that. The food stamps.
Well, look, the reason why I say that is because
I'm like, wow, where do we go from there? But
Michael Carrillo had said that Friedman had been bargain basement shopping for the bullpen. And I agree with you, Michael, because I feel like this is what Friedman does every year. He finds gold in these reclamation projects. But how many times can you find gold in the bargain bin? I mean, eventually you might have gotten everything out of the bargain bin, right? I mean, you're going to have to spend to get a good bullpen guy. Like I keep hearing Liam Hendricks. The Dodgers are going to trade for Liam Hendricks. You're going to have to give up something good to get Liam Hendricks, right, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if they have they have the pieces. Are they willing to give up those pieces?
That's the question.
Asking for Bobby Miller, believe it or not. And that's going to be a no. Exactly. Yeah. And so are you going to give the catcher down in the minors? You're going to give the Cartayas. You're going to have to. At this point, you're running out of options. And so you're right, Juan. Unless they start dealing some of these youngsters, I don't make that trade. I've said it before, and I'm gonna probably piss off Michael and somebody's on here. Is this team going to win the World Series this year? Shake your head this way. No, they're not. Okay, they're not. And they know that. The Dodgers know that. Fans don't want to hear it, but they know that. I think Friedman and they knew that from the beginning. This is not going to be their year. So I would not dump their entire minor league for a couple of guys, a couple of rentals for a few months. I've never been a fan of that unless you're on the verge of something really, really special. The Dodgers are not showing me that they're on the verge of something that special when you have, by the way, the San Francisco Giants all of a sudden on your tail. You got the Diamondbacks ahead of you and the Padres who can wake up any moment. And you got about a number of other teams that are looking good. It's I'm not saying I'm giving up on the season. It's entertaining and anything could happen once you get to October. Just ask the Giants. They won the World Series with 88 win team. So it can happen. This is not a 100 win team. This is not a 95 win team. I've said it. I think they're going to be around 92 wins when this thing is said and done. Is that enough for me to convince me though? Hey, let's give up 2 or 3 of our prospects for a rental. I don't know. I'm afraid that what you see is what you're going to get. I think they're looking towards 2024. I've always believed that since the beginning of the year.
Michael Carrillo, I think you just gave Babyface an aneurysm. Michael Carrillo on the live. Cartaya isn't going to pan out as a catcher, so I'm okay with letting him go. Babyface, reaction.
I mean, it's hard to say what's going to happen with Cartaya because even today, when Barnes got hit, right, and first thing they asked Roberts is, "Are you going to call up Cartaya?" And he's like, "No, he's still long play. He's not coming up." And he's in Double-A. That's as high as he's gotten, Double-A. So he's not coming up, and he struggled. So we don't know what the future holds for Cartaya. Yeah, he's their top prospect, but we don't know. Is he going to pan out as he starts getting into higher Triple-A, and then he gets up to the show, right? I mean, as catcher, then again, he's blocked, right? You got Will Smith. You got the best catcher in the NL on the Dodgers right now, and that's Will Smith. And if you're the Dodgers, you're going to try and lock him up. So you lock him up, what happens with Cartaya? You either have to trade him, right, or where are you going to put him? You going to throw him in the outfield? You going to make him a third baseman? Are you going to try and put him at first? But Freddie Freeman's there for another couple of years. So what are you going to do? So that's the dilemma there. I mean, you kind of think right now it kind of favors to actually probably trading him in a year or two.
All right, Princesa, how you feeling about that?
I mean, you guys know way more, but I don't dig that deep into the farm system. I always just defer back to the Dodgers know what they're doing. The fact that some of us are upset that they're not going to win 100 games this season. Like, do you know how spoiled we are to even have to make that comment? Like, oh my God, we're only going to win 92 games. You know, it's like we have good problems. The Dodgers, they're a good problem to have, and I still just go back to it's still early. Everybody just take a deep breath. I know what you're saying about bargain basement because I do feel like they don't spend big money all the time. But Jason, aren't the Dodgers going after Ohtani next year? Maybe that's why this year we're just supposed to suffer with only 92 wins.
It's the Shohei Ohtani show, everybody. Welcome. It is June. And we have officially become the Shohei Ohtani show.
Thank you.
Please save us, Shoheis. Save us.
Now imagine the hurt in this group and the Dodger if we do not land Ohtani.
And there's a good chance they're not.
No, there's a very good chance they're not.
There is a good chance.
There is a good chance they're not.
Ohtani's
but here's
watching these games and cracking up a Modelo, going like, "Well, I don't know if I want to go play for these guys."
But look, let me. If they would have made the trade for Soto and given up everything they wanted for Soto, where would they be now? You know, so I think you pose a very good question, Babyface. Is it time to, because Michael Carrillo's on fire? Yeah, I agree with you. Hunter Fiducia is probably going to be the guy who's going to get called up, I think. But is Rushing Dalton going to be a better catcher than Cartaya? So I always thought it was very interesting that the Dodgers drafted Rushing Dalton. It's like, why would you, is there a reason why you guys are drafting him? Are you seeing something in Cartaya that isn't going to translate? But before we segue to the next transition, I just want to get Babyface's reaction on this. It looks like the show pods have fixed Gary Sanchez. That would have been a nice backup catcher, no?
I don't buy it. He's going to revert to Gary Sanchez. Give it another week or two.
And your reasons why he's going to revert to Gary Sanchez are?
His track record.
You think he's done?
I mean, he got DFA'd by the Mets right after like 5 games, right? They saw.
Yeah,
enough.
I mean, the Mets must be really pissed right now.
I mean, I don't think he's gonna. I mean, Gary Sanchez was like a highly touted prospect, right? He came to the Yankees. Oh, this guy's the next dude, right? He's the next Thurman Munson, right, or whatever, right? And he never panned out. I mean, I don't think all of a sudden he gets to the Padres and he's going to become an MVP. I don't think it's going to happen.
All right. Well, segueing from people that piss people off, Mookie Betts has a podcast. I don't know if you guys are aware of. So he's been interviewing some major league players, and he interviewed Clayton Kershaw, and he recently interviewed Aaron Judge. And our condolences to Aaron Judge. He fought the bullpen wall, and the bullpen wall got its ass kicked, but it looks like right now the bullpen wall is having a little bit of a laugh because Aaron Judge has been placed on the IL. But in his conversation with Aaron Judge, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Mookie Betts said the best rivalry in all of sports is the Yankees and the Red Sox. Princesa, your reaction.
Well, I've calmed down since I first heard that comment. I'm just going to go with something to me so obvious. It's regional. It's very regional. To me, a true rivalry is when you have all eyes tune in. And yeah, you're going to tell me like in baseball, it's huge. But outside of baseball, do people watch the Yankees and the Red Sox? They both have like some of the most annoying fan bases. So I'm not trying to give them any love, but I'm not gonna counter it either with, oh, the Dodgers Yankees is better. I'm not saying that. I'm just focusing on Yankees Red Sox, and it's a great rivalry, but it's definitely not the best in all of sports. I would say that USC UCLA is better than that because
hot take
in my world.
Boatman. Is that what the issue is? Is because he said in all of sport, like in baseball, as much as I hate to admit it, isn't he right?
In
Isn't
baseball, he's right. It is
the Yankees and as much as I would love to say it's the Dodgers and the Giants, I just don't know if it's there because the Giants they're down most of the time.
Yeah.
No, it's baseball, but not the most in all sports.
Yeah, I agree. Boston Yankees are definitely the biggest rivalry in baseball. I hate to admit that, but it just is. It's a different environment. It's a different vibe with the fans out there. And all the sports, and I was racking my brain as you posed that question to Alicia. I go, well, what other? But Alicia might be onto something. I think that some of the rivalries in college football are probably bigger.
And football runs this country, right?
Yeah, I mean, you think Boston Celtics, LA Lakers, that's a huge rivalry, but it's a rivalry that only meets every once in a while.
Right.
In the NBA Finals, where it gets big, is not something during the season that has that carries that kind of weight as when the Red Sox and the Yankees meet several times a year. So that's the difference there. I don't know if the NFL has an equivalent to something that big that takes on that kind of. I mean, it's pretty close. It's up there. I don't know if it's the best one in all the sports, but it's up there. Yankees and Red Sox, it's a little different.
I mean, don't you, in order for it to be a really good rivalry, doesn't there need to be success on both sides? Like this time they won one, next time they won one. Because if one side dominates the other, I don't know if that makes it a great rivalry. Babyface, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of have to agree. I think in baseball, yeah, right. But I mean, when you look outside of baseball, right? I mean, you've had some great rivalries like, Lakers, Celtics, but that really hasn't been a rivalry, right, since what, the 60s, 70s, 80s, right? And then, and then you had one, in the 2010s, right? So it's been a long time for that rivalry, right? And then you look at Dodgers Yankees was a huge rivalry, right? But that's a long time going back too, right? 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, right? So it's nostalgia, right? But it's just not current, right? Things that you see still current is like Red Sox, Yankees, Dodgers, Giants kind of still, but I don't feel it's the Dodgers Giants. I think kind of has kind of fizzled out a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't see. It's more for the fans now, right? It's hardcore fans,
and it's because we're told to hate the Giants. But I've said this many times on this show: the Dodgers piss me off more than the Giants piss me off. What the Dodgers do.
What about the Bumgarner days? He pisses me off. Like,
I mean, there's still those little things that ignite it, right? The Bumgarner and the Muncy, right? But it's not. I don't think that when they go into every series that they're playing them, they don't have that like the Boston and Yankees do. I think they feel it every single time. I don't think the Dodgers Giants do. I mean, there might be stuff like that ignites it, and now that weekend is like, oh man, this is like a crazy series now. But I don't think if you go in and ask the players like, do you hate those Giant players on the other side? You're like, nah, we're cool with them.
I will say this: when they met in the playoffs, that felt intense and that felt great. But then the next year, the Giants sucked. So it's like, this is what I mean. For the most part, the Red Sox and the Yankees usually are competitive. There are those years where one is down. So I found it very interesting. I knew that it was going to tick off Dodger fans because you had Mookie as a Dodger saying that the best rivalry is the Yankees and the Red Sox, because I think people wanted him to say it's the Dodgers and the Giants. But I agree with you. I feel that rivalry has lost its luster. Michael Carrillo coming in with the Cowboys versus the Packers. The Bravos and the Mets, that may be a good rivalry, but we're not there. So I think you have to be a part of it, right, to think about it.
That's why Mookie's comments carry a lot of weight, because he's been on both sides, right? So he's a guy that's played in that other rivalry. He's played in this rivalry. And I think that's why his comments are valid. And I don't think he cares about either one of them that bad. I mean, so I think he's being pretty objective about it. So I believe the guy.
I think you're onto something, Jason, because he also arrived in Los Angeles when that rivalry has fizzled out, the Dodgers Giants. So he hasn't been part of that rivalry. Plus, there's always an East Coast bias. He was living in Boston when our games were going on, and they don't stay up. So I don't expect him to consider the Dodgers Giants a rivalry because he was not part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I also think it's really it's really cool that I think he's doing that podcast, because he's talking to players that usually I don't think are as open with the media. Like to see Kershaw answer some of those questions, and to see, and the problem is I know it's going to feed into Mookie doesn't care about baseball. And more now, it's Mookie's into bowling. Mookie's into now his podcast. Mookie doesn't care about baseball, so I know it's coming, but I think it's just interesting. I do want to ask you guys something in terms of when you guys go to Dodger Stadium. Do you guys go to the stand or to the concession stands to get food, or do you guys order from vendors? Do you guys wait until the vendor comes along?
I usually go to the concession.
Yeah, I go to the concession mostly, but if a vendor comes around that will pick my interest, like, ooh, that sounds good, I have bought from vendors for sure.
I feel like vendors are a dying breed, because I do feel like everyone goes to the concession stand, or there's a new place in the stadium that's got like good food, and it's like these poor vendors. I want to show you guys what's it like to be a vendor. We got a chance to, I don't know if you guys know or have heard of Tweezy the vendor at Dodger Stadium. Yeah. Like, not only does he work at Dodger Stadium, but he works at other stadiums. So I got a chance to talk to Tweezy the vendor, and I want to just share it with you, so maybe we can have a greater appreciation for vendors next time we go to the stadium. Babyface, can you play the tape?
Be as natural as possible.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just be yourself. Okay, so first of all, where did the name Tweezy come from?
That's a throwback, man. I've been having so Tweezy originates from Tweezy, and my name's Antoine, so it kind of just works out like Tweezy, Antoine. It kind of just blends in. It goes way back to like middle school days, and then right after COVID happened, we were able to like get back to work because it was like a year and a half like no work. And so I just took out the A and the N, and I said, hey, let me make it short. I vend for a living, is what I do for work. And then so I kind of just put it together, and I just made it Tweezy the vendor, and I just been running it with it since, and we're like going about a year and a half strong now.
All right, so you said events, right? But so you have vendor as part of your name. So do you consider yourself a vendor? Is that who you are?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Shoot, I started vending before I was even a stadium vendor. I started selling lollipops like in middle school, like back in 7th grade, 8th grade, chips in high school. So I've been kind of like a vendor in a sense. But I started vending 10 years ago when I was 16 down in San Diego, because that's where I'm from. One of my neighbors had said, hey, you should work at the baseball stadium selling peanuts and Cracker Jacks. And ever since then, I kind of liked it, and it's been working out great so far. I love it.
So you're not a vendor just at Dodger Stadium. You're like all over the place, right?
Yeah, so places I've gone, I've pretty much every baseball stadium in California. I go to Vegas. I go to spring training every year. I've been to Colorado. I've been to Tennessee. I definitely want to go check out Chicago, Florida, New York. So some guys kind of just stay local. Me, I kind of keep my options open. I kind of work a little bit everywhere. But there's nothing like the Dodger Stadium. This is like the best place to be. It's the most funnest. I love it here. It's amazing here. I love it.
So when you say you want to go to other stadiums, it's not just to visit. You want to go to other stadiums to work, to be a vendor.
Oh no, yeah. So I have a close friend named Reggie Duval Saint. I think he's from Philadelphia. He actually has a mission to work as a vendor in every single MLB and NFL stadium, and I believe he's almost done with that mission for both. But for me, I kind of just keep it local in Cali, and then just kind of whatever benefits, like what would benefit my income. So you could kind of pick and choose where you want to be when it comes to vending. So I kind of like the little freedom of it. It's pretty cool.
So you have a social media following. What was the big thing that made you go viral, that you started noticing all of a sudden, hey man, a lot of people are starting to follow me?
I think so when I came back from, like after COVID, it was 2021, June. we were able to like vendors come back in the stadium, and it was still partial attendance. I actually had added like my username. It was originally without any of these pins. I didn't have any of these pins. It was my username, Tweezy the vendor. I had added it, and it was like for about a month or so. Everybody kept adding me, and I had gained like I think like 2,000 followers on Instagram because of it. And then the Dodgers had said like, hey, they consider it self-promoting, so they didn't like that. So I had came to work, and they had said like, hey, you can't wear your hat no more because so it's not like anything. Me personally, I don't think anything's wrong with it, but they said no self-promoting, and so I had to buy a whole new hat, and then I just started adding pins. Like some people gave me a couple of these pins, and then I added a few myself.
Yeah, so how do you deal with that when all of a sudden you start getting popular, but it might jeopardize your job? I mean, in a sense, what you're doing, isn't it good for business?
I mean, I think the people love me, man, here, and I think it's great for business, honestly. Because in essence, I'm representing the Dodgers, and it's definitely a blessing being a part of the team. Even though I work for the concession air, I still work inside the stadium with all the people and the fans. So I mean, personally, I don't see it's. I mean, it's nothing that should jeopardize like my job, or like I want to say, just who I am as a person. I was hoping that it would last a lot longer, because sometimes if I want to promote myself, it's only word to mouth instead of just like, hey, check out my social media right here. You could look me up. It was a lot easier that way. But, there's always somebody who has to control certain things in stadium, and everything's ran by, how it goes.
So are there vendors that are haters? Do they look at you and go, hey, man, tone it down. Just sell. You're making me look bad over here.
So for many years, even before I was Tweezy the vendor, because I'm going on my 10th year vending now, I actually always kind of been this way, and I did have like a lot of the older guys kind of just like hate on the whole like be more like with the fans and exciting and all that stuff. So some people some people didn't like the idea that I was very interactive. But I mean, that's just me. That's just who I am as a person. I enjoy it. And the people right here at Dodger Stadium, they love it too. So I don't see nothing wrong with it. There's some facilities where we all have to sell the same product, and because I feel like I'm a very well-rounded vendor, it's kind of a threat to their income because it's all commission based. So some people think like that we get paid by the hour, but it's not. It's all commission and tips only. So but the way it works here at Dodgers, it's seniority based. So the longer you've been here, the better product you get to sell. So that's pretty cool. It's a set where everybody's able to make some money here.
Wait, so let me get this straight. You could be selling something, and if you don't sell anything, you don't get paid for the day?
Pretty much, for the most part, that's how a lot of companies work. Now, I believe at Dodgers, I'm not too sure the minimum wage in LA. I think it's like $16 or something like that. I'm not too sure. So we only do 4 hours of labor. So if you don't hit the minimum sales of the 4 hours that you're here, I believe you get paid the minimum. For most facilities, it's kind of like that. But I'm not trying to come for $60. You know what I mean? So I try my best to, sell the most I can, not only for the company, but for myself so I can make a living. You know what I mean?
And you're making a living, right, doing this?
Oh, no, yeah. I do this pretty much out of the whole month. So far, I only get maybe like 4 days off in a month.
Damn. So I saw a video of you partying with the DJs out there in the center field plaza. That's not frowned upon. You were able to do that on your own time, or how'd you pull that off?
Well, actually, me and DJ Severe were actually really tight. We had met, I think, a couple years ago, because ever since I started working here 5 seasons ago, little by little, they kind of like were putting me on the big screen. But it wasn't until like after COVID and the whole Tweezy the vendor was created, it started becoming like a regular thing. And so me and the DJ, we linked up, we met each other, and he's really down to earth. He's really cool people, very humble. And so we hit it off, and one day he was right there DJing in the outfield. I think it was after a win, and he had saw me, and he like brought me up. And I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with just being cool with the people. I mean, we do this for the people, you know what I mean? So I just love the energy I could bring to the people. So I mean, nobody said nothing about it. I hope nobody ever says anything about it. I don't think it should ever be frowned upon, because like I said, I'm representing the Dodgers, and I'm good people's, he's good people's. He's the DJ of the stadium for right here at Dodgers. So much love to Lanier, DJ Severe, you already know. So yeah, man, it's been cool.
So you're not a salesperson, you're an entertainer, aren't you?
For sure is both. I've always had sales in my blood. Big shout out to my uncle David. He's a very big, inspiring person to me. Very successful. It's just in my blood. I've always been a salesman, but not only a salesman. I've always just had it. I've always been open to like entertaining people. It's always been cool. I'm just a people's person. I'm outgoing. I'm easy to talk to. So I like it. And if you could entertain and bring some income in, why not do both? You know what I mean? So here we are now.
Where'd you learn how to dance like that? I seen a video, man, where you are breaking it down, where all of a sudden I was just like, is that Usher?
So I've always been into house music. I really love house music. Always grew onto beats and how they were made. And I started going to like little tiny like raves like back in like high school, back in the day, and I kind of learned how to shuffle back then, and then so I kind of just like implemented like shuffling and just like random dance moves all together, and every time I just wing it. I wing it every time. It's not the same dance moves every time. It could be similar, but I kind of just wing it depending on what I'm selling. And then when it comes like to dancing with the whole ice cream and the dry ice, that's like a whole like its own little hibachi show just with the ice cream instead of the steak.
You were at the Super Bowl, weren't you?
I did go to this last Super Bowl in Arizona, and I did go to the one prior in LA, so that was my first ever one. It was pretty cool. I liked it. I plan on going to my third ever Super Bowl coming up in Vegas. I'm really hoping I can go. I believe I'm going to be a candidate to go. And so we just got to wait a couple more months until that happens.
Now, is this you working the Super Bowl, or are you going as a spectator?
No, definitely working. Majority, I mean, I'll go watch a Super Bowl if I want to go. I know that not everybody gets permitted to go work a Super Bowl. You have to be hand selected because it's such a premium event. And so I had been working with my boss that ran the Super Bowl for a couple years now, like about 7 years now or so. So it's been cool, man. It's all, sometimes in life it's about who you know, not what you know. So that's definitely been a blessing for sure in disguise.
Well, here on the Bleed Los podcast, we're about three things. We're about the Dodgers, we're about Los Angeles, and we're about tacos. So I got a couple of questions here. We're going to wrap things up. These are speed round questions. We call this our kickback questions. So first of all, are you a Dodger fan? Are you a baseball fan?
So it's crazy. A kid growing up from San Diego. I grew up like a Padre fan, and I used to work for the Padres. That's where like my whole vending career kind of started. It wasn't up until 2018. I was called up by one of my bosses that they were introducing beer vendors in the seats of Dodger Stadium for the first time ever in history. And that's when I first got introduced to come and work here. And I just really couldn't believe like how amazing the people was, the team was, the atmosphere. I mean, I loved all of it. I fell in love with all of it, and then I kind of grew onto the people, onto the team, the history from Brooklyn to LA. I mean, it's just the whole background and the history. I fell in love with Jackie Robinson. I mean, it's just so much to love, and I took it all in, and then I became a Dodger fan ever since, for sure.
I mean, Petco Park is a beautiful stadium. So, getting called up to work at Dodger Stadium, is that like being called up to work in the majors as opposed to the minors down there in Petco?
It's definitely been a blessing for sure. Working here, there's definitely some money to be made. Right there at Padre Stadium. I love the stadium. The food is great. The atmosphere is nice. It's right there by the little bay, by the convention center. There's definitely like similar opportunities there. I think I was just way more welcomed here than my own city, and it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to see it inside out, but outside in. If you were to like sit down and talk to me and figure out my story. A lot of people don't know, but actually back in 2018 when we were introduced to sell beer, I didn't know anybody in LA, so I couldn't couch surf. I didn't have family here, so I actually would just thug it out and just sleep in my car at the gym every single game, make a little couple $100, and then after like the 7-game homestand, drive straight back to San Diego. So it was kind of like not a struggle, but it was like I wanted this. Like I wanted to be a part of it. I'm willing to sleep in my car to do so and make a living, and so it's been a blessing ever since, for sure.
So, are you still commuting from San Diego to LA?
So I've been actually blessed. We're going on 2 years now that I have a really close friend of mine. I consider him family. He actually rents me out like a little place in South Central. A really good price. So I've been blessed. I don't have to like sleep in my car or commute all the time. So I still live in San Diego, and then now I've been living in LA for 2 years now.
So what's your favorite part of LA? I'm talking geography here. Like what part of LA is your favorite?
I mean, the beaches are great. Just the history, honestly, the history goes really deep. LA's been through a lot, but it has a lot to love. Not only with the sports, but just like I said, the history, man. It's, just like anywhere, you have good parts, parts of the city, and then you have like the bad side of the city. But honestly, even in some bad parts of LA, there's some good out of it. You know what I mean? So not everything in LA is what they call hood. It just has a strong community of people who firmly believe on, this is where they're from. And I love that. I love how people are very strong-minded about, where they're from and what it stands for. And there's a lot to love. And then there's Griffith Park. There's Chavez Ravine Park. I've gone disc golfing there one time with a friend. I mean, there's a lot to love, man. The people is cool. The food is good. It's a big city. Sometimes the traffic could be like, but if you work around it, you make it happen. And there's a lot to love in Los Angeles, for sure.
Do you have a future in politics? That was a good non-answer. So wait, you're going to tell me either the east side, the west side, the south side. What part of LA?
I probably would say the west side, not only because of Hollywood or Santa Monica or Long Beach. I just think I've always liked the breeze. I feel like the more east you go, the more hotter it gets. So the more west you go, you get the breeze from the ocean. And I love the beach. I love just chilling at the beach, in some swim trunks, maybe a little chela. It's cool, man. And I love being a part of LA. I'm going on, I think, my 8th year working in LA. So I had first started, my commute from San Diego to when I first started working in LA was crazy. I had no car. we're talking a whole day just to get to the Rose Bowl, or just to get to LA Coliseum when I was like 18, 19 years old.
Okay, last one. As I mentioned, we're all about tacos here. So, I mean, San Diego's got some great tacos too. So, two-parter here. Which is a better taco town, San Diego or Los Angeles? And then what is your favorite taco and where do you go to get that taco?
Oh man. See, in San Diego, there's like, if you know, like a couple spots, and that's the same for Los Angeles. I know a lot of people like praise King Taco in LA, but I just never grew on to King Taco. I'm not really a big fan. And then in San Diego, everybody like praises Tacos El Gordo, and they actually bring like good quality to the table. But if I had a favorite taco spot in San Diego, it probably would be Tacos El Gordo, because that's just the go-to. They're from Tijuana. I mean, they bring good quality to the table. If we're talking Los Angeles, there's two spots that always come to mind. Either Tacos El Viejon on Instagram, or I believe it's Tacos Los Poblanos Estilo Tijuana. Those are fire. I mean, if you go to a taquero and they don't got guacamole, it's like, how are you supposed to eat a taco, man? A lot of people in LA, I don't like avocado, I don't like guacamole, no me gusta. I'm like, man, it's like, my mom's from Tijuana, and it's like, I grew up with avocado on my tacos, so it's like, without it, it's like the taco's naked.
What's your favorite protein?
Favorite protein? Like,
You're like carne asada al pastor. I mean,
man, the cabeza and the carne asada, all the way by far. I mean, I like adobada, but I noticed in Los Angeles, nobody really has the adobada like they have in San Diego. The adobada, I think they call it, over here they call it, it's like a different type of adobada. It's called, I'm trying to remember the name of it. I can't remember, but I'm not really a big fan of the adobada out here. It's all right, but it's really hard finding like good like eateries right here in Los Angeles, unless you know, or if you're referred, you know. And speaking about food, I've been wanting to start my food journey and my food channel. I just been lagging on that. That's a couple years overpast, but we'll get there for sure.
So, where can our listeners, our viewers, follow you on the Instagram, on the social media?
You guys could follow and tap in. I go by Tweezy the Vendor. It's TWEEZY the Vendor, all together, no spaces. I have Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. All my names the same, Tweezy the Vendor across the board. But just remember, it ain't easy being Tweezy.
And there you have it, Tweezy the Vendor. Look, I don't know about you guys. There were a couple of things talking to him. It made me like, I need to start buying from vendors more often. But the fact that this dude wants to be a vendor in every major league ballpark. Look, I want to visit every major league park to watch a baseball game. I got 18 down. This dude wants to work on them. The fact that a lot of them only get paid on commission was something I was not aware of. And the self-promotion, that's got to be tough, right? Because how do you distinguish yourself from the rest of these vendors that are out there? Princesa, what are your thoughts on Tweezy the Vendor?
You just said it. He does distinguish himself. I do, even if I don't purchase from a vendor. I don't know if you guys do this. I try to always smile, like acknowledge them, like don't just ignore them, because they're there walking up and down, you know, they're hustling. So now, like you want, I'm going to try to buy more from vendors. I mean, we've even tipped vendors before, especially if they go out of their way, because it is a service. And I've seen Tweezy. I have bought ice cream from Tweezy, and I'm not even a huge ice cream fan, because he's dancing. He's like his little rhymes, like he's entertaining. You said it in the interview. And so this is so cool that I got to know him more. Two things, or do you want to get everyone's answer before?
No, go ahead.
So when he said that it was hard to find food in LA, I almost lost it. But then he followed up with, unless you're referred. And I had to remember, okay, he's not from here.
Yeah.
So he probably, there's strip malls everywhere. You gotta really research or have a friend tell you where to go, especially if it's a new spot or a spot that they grew up with. Like, I get it. So I walked it back. Well, yeah, I'll just leave it with that. Let everyone else. But I'm glad that you introduced me to Tweezy, because he is a fixture at Dodger Stadium. When he's there vending, you all give him some love, because he does go above and beyond just the products in his. And that's another thing. These guys and gals are lifting, bro. Lifting.
Yeah. Do you even lift, bro?
Boatman.
Were you aware of Tweezy?
I've seen it, but not that aware. I didn't know about a story, and I certainly didn't know that these guys that worked on a commission. Really, basically, it's what it is, right? They eat what they catch. So maybe there's a spot for Austin Barnes with the organization after all. No, that's wrong. Did I just say that? That's wrong. No, but that's the positive out of this story for me. There's a job for everyone. But no, this one. Sorry, man. But no, I love it.
I love it, man.
It reminds you a long time ago. I remember talking to a buddy of mine who worked there, and he said, if you get to know the folks that work these jobs at Dodger Stadium or any arena, they have fascinating stories. And some of them, this is their livelihood, this is their career, this is what they do. For some of them, I understand there are lawyers that are working. They used to work there part-time just because they wanted to be at the stadium. I knew someone who was back when they actually had the physical ticket booths, so one that are still now, they're just there as like, for show, for relics. The kids think they're cool, but we actually used to walk and get our tickets there in the middle of the parking lot, those little booths. I mean, I knew someone there who had a very well-paying job, a great career, but they loved that ticket job, and they just took it every year for 20 years because they wanted to be at the stadium. And so it's a lot of folks love that. So, but I love to see folks like that. They love what they do. They go in there and they're working different arenas and stadiums, and it is a hustle. But I had no idea that they worked on some type of a commission base. And so, but in a way that makes me feel better, because that tells me they're probably making more than minimum wage. And if for some, because I've been in that situation when I was in college where we got paid by commission, but if we didn't make our sales that week, then, you get minimum wage, you have to. But so it's nice to know they're doing okay. They're doing better than the minimum, considering for all their hard work. It'd be sad to say that they're working their butts off and selling like crazy, and all they're getting is still the minimum. So that's a little bit refreshing, I guess.
I just love that this dude loves vending. You can tell. There's times where I'm at the stadium and you can tell that these people hate their job. But it's not with Tweezy, man. Tweezy really, his energy is infectious. I love that laugh of his, and then his little "it ain't easy being Tweezy" at the end, I think is hysterical. Babyface, what are your thoughts? You were the one who introduced me to Tweezy the vendor. After hearing his story, what do you think?
Yeah, I think people got to look him up on. I've seen some of his TikTok videos. Like he'll be selling, he'll be dancing, then he gets he has that ice thing. And he's like doing this thing, and he has like ice. I mean, all the steam and smoke coming up on his face. So it's definitely interesting. I mean, I definitely think you need to promote yourself. I mean, the only other vendors that I remember is Roger the vendor, right? Remember Roger the peanut guy? Who slings at about like 80 miles an hour.
Which he's not allowed to do anymore, right?
I think there was something about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So him, and there's another guy on Instagram that I've seen. I don't remember him. He's an older gentleman. I remember he has a mustache, but I see him post all the time on Instagram.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. So there's not a lot of. I mean, I would think you'd want to do that, right? Get yourself noticed. So people want to come and buy from you, and I think that's what Tweezy's doing, and he enjoys what he's doing, and he likes it, and good for him.
Treat your vendors well when you go to the stadium, people. These guys are hard workers, and there's a developing story that actually some of the people at the concession stands, they might strike at Dodger Stadium. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on, because if you don't have food at the ball game, I don't know, we might have riots at Dodger Stadium. So that's a developing. Go ahead, Princesa.
You could bring your own food, which is how I grew up. We were never allowed to buy anything, but
I can't have nothing.
But we should just still treat our vendors. And even if you're not going to buy anything, show love. Like, what's up? Like, think about when it's a hot day or a super cold day, like windy day, they're out there still working. We're over here like, oh, I need a little mini fan, but they're working. So much love to our vendors.
Absolutely. And if you see him at the stadium, make sure you let him know that you heard him on the Bleed Lows podcast.
Tweezy.
We're going to wrap things up with some sad news. The Iron Sheik passed away. And as everyone knows, we're suckers for wrestling here on the Bleed Lows podcast. The Iron Sheik, to me, a couple of episodes ago, Babyface and I had posted the question, was there any a great wrestler that was just either a babyface his whole career or a heel that you would put on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling? And we didn't bring him up at the time, but Babyface brought him up and said, well, what about the Sheik? Well, I mean, Iron Sheik was a heel his whole career. And I will just say this is probably the nicest thing that I'll say about the Pukester. I don't know if he blows up as big as he does in the beginning of his career without the Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik was a guy that everybody hated. They hated him. And it was everything that wrestling just takes advantage of, right? The xenophobia. We're gonna make this Iranian guy. He's the worst human being ever, and they hated him. And there was the gimmick even long after he retired. And if you followed his social media, he would always tell the Pukester to fuck off, fuck Hulk Hogan. He hates Hulk Hogan. I love that shit. Princesa, how aware were you of the Iron Sheik?
I was aware of him. He's one of the few wrestlers that I recall hearing about, knowing about, especially because he had a look different from the rest. And the whole xenophobic thing is right on. He served his purpose, right? Which was to push the narrative. I mean, that's how powerful media is, but I won't get into that. I will say that my dad always kind of chuckles and laughs at wrestling, but he knows, and he's spoken about the Iron Sheik. So I always had respect for Iron Sheik. Like if my dad knows who he is and is telling stories, I just overheard. So I know that he was an integral part of the success of wrestling. But the whole thing with heel, I thought that sometimes the bad guys in wrestling were allowed to become good guys. He never got to be a good guy.
No. The Sheik was always a bad, even when he came back as General Adnan, where they try to tell us, hey, this is a different guy. And we're like, fuck you. That's not General. That's the Iron Sheik. No, I mean, he's still got the whole fucking mustache. Do you guys remember that when they made Sergeant Slaughter a Persian Gulf sympathizer of Iraq? And then all of a sudden the triangle of terror with, and then General Adnan, and it's just like, no, that's the fucking Iron Sheik. Don't say that. You should have just said he was the Iron Sheik. But no, the Sheik. Look, there is a great documentary for those who don't know anything about the Iron Sheik on A&E, and it lays it out. Obviously, after his wrestling career, like most wrestlers, he lived a very rough life with drugs, and there's a tragic story with his daughter. It's just heartbreaking. That really humanizes the Iron Sheik. But this is a guy who was a very accomplished, especially when he was younger in Iran, or as the Sheik would say, I should start paying homage and say Iran. The way he was in Iran. But the Sheik is someone who probably, in my opinion, didn't get enough credit. Every wrestler spoke glowingly about the Sheik. Boatman, do you have any memories of the Iron Sheik?
Absolutely. My fondest memories was I don't remember the name of the cartoon, but you all remember the wrestling.
Oh, the rock and roll wrestling cartoon.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. I love that cartoon, and the Iron Sheik was one of the main villains of it, right? And it's I got to go back and watch that. I love those cartoons, and of course, I'm a fan of '80s wrestling, and Iron Sheik. He just lived. I don't want to say he lived in the shadows, but he was second to Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Andre the Giant, he would have been the heel, right, of the 80s and stuff. But growing up as a kid, it's Andre the Giant, and then the Sheik, and then others came along and things like that. But the guy was a legend. Just this morning, I was listening to some comments that The Rock had about the Iron Sheik, and I didn't know this, but he said that the Iron Sheik's wife used to babysit him when he was 8 years old.
Wow.
He goes, I used to call him Uncle Sheiky. He goes, he was Uncle Sheiky to me. Yeah. He said, and our moms and our families were very close, that his wife actually babysat me when I was 8 years old, when my dad was out doing stuff or whatever. So those families, they mingled, and he had some very fond memories, and everyone called him a beautiful man. So, he'll be missed, but we're losing our childhood, man.
We are
dropping like flies. It's too bad. It's too bad.
All the great wrestlers are going. Babyface, you're going to have the last word on the Iron Sheik.
Yeah, so I was watching that documentary yesterday, and just learning his history, how he came up. Like, he actually was a babyface when he first started, but he was getting nothing. Like, no, he still had his hair. He was getting no reaction. And one of the promoters from another organization, they told him, you know what, you should shave your head and we'll call you the Iron Sheik. And then kind of from there it took off, right? And so this was the 80s, right? There was conflict with the U.S. and Iran during that time. So he fit right in, right? He was this Iranian that came in, and I mean, he was hated. I mean, yes, he would get so much heat. Just like fans just love to hate this dude, and to the point like where it's like, I mean, he loved it, and it's like crazy, like thinking like this guy was actually getting death threats. Like, if he showed up to places, like, we don't want that guy here, because they believe the gimmick so much, right? Yeah. And what's interesting too is like he got, after Hogan and he fought Slaughter, he was doing a program with Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yeah.
In '87, and they got busted for cocaine together. They were riding in a car together, both of them, before a show. They went and they got busted. They got pulled over. They had cocaine and some other drugs in their car, and they got busted. And they ended up still going to that show that night and thinking, Duggan was like, hey, I think we got away with it. We're okay. Like, nobody knows. And the next morning, he said, it just blew up, right? There was no internet at that time, but the next morning, the news got out, and people were like, wait, what the heck is Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Iron Sheik doing in the same car? They hate each other. Like, what are they doing? So that's kind of
they're doing cocaine. That's what they're doing. It's a hell of a drug.
It started coming out like, hey, this isn't real. Like, they were in the car together. So, and I think after that, he ended up leaving the WWF, and he came back as Colonel Mustafa or whatever we used to think.
Oh yeah, it was Colonel Mustafa. You're right. That's
and then he had another run as Iron Sheik with Rikishi when he was that other wrestler,
the Sultan.
The Sultan. Yeah, that only lasted a little bit because the Sultan didn't get over, and then I mean Iron Sheik is definitely. I mean, I still remember him like on Saturday morning, or I'd be watching wrestling. My dad would get a kick out of him too, because like he'd be like, Iran #1, America, and like he'd like spit. And my dad would just get a kick out of when he was like spit USA, and like he'd be like, I mean, it's just it brings back all those memories. Yeah,
he was the ultimate villain, and him and his sidekick Nikolai Volkov. Yeah. I mean, those were more innocent times where we clearly knew who the good guys were and who the bad guys were. We don't live in that kind of world. All right, let's wrap things up. We went a little long here, but let's go with our picks. Nobody won last week because everybody was feeling the Dodgers, and the Dodgers went 2-4, and nobody had them at 2-4.
2-4? I thought I went 2-4.
No, no. You're misremembering that. You pulled a Roger Clemens. You misremembered that. So then the next stretch coming up, we got 3 over the weekend against the Phillies of Philadelphia, and then they come back home to play against Fighting Joe Kelly and the Fighting Chicago White Sox. Let's update the standings real quick. Our listeners, you guys on the live, put in your picks. Our listeners are in first place. And then Babyface and I are in second. And Alicia Alonso, the Boatman, you guys still aren't on the board. So who wants to go first?
We got 6 games here.
6 games. 3 against the Phillies and 3 against the White Sox.
I'll go first. I'll say 4-2. I think the Dodgers will do all right.
All right. 4-2. Princesa, you ready?
I was going to say 4-2, but you just reminded the whole world that I'm not even on the board yet. Maybe strategically, I should just say 3-3. Let's split.
Damn. David wants a taco coming in with 5-1. He believes in the Dodgers. Nice,
David.
Princesa, I agree with you. I think they're going to have a hard time in Philadelphia this weekend, and who knows if even all those games are going to get played, because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the East Coast looks like Blade Runner 2 right now. So I don't know. They canceled one game. I know the hope is that it's going to clear up in time for them to play. But I think they're also going to go 3-3. Simeon coming in with a 6-0. Wow. That is positivity right there. Babyface, you have the honor of closing it out.
You're 3-3.
Yeah,
that's what I think of it.
Oh, wow. I see what you did there. Very good.
I'm gonna go 4-2.
4-2. All right. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Bleed Lows podcast. We want to just remind everyone, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and to our YouTube channel. Please let everyone know about the Bleed Lows podcast and let us know what you think about it. You guys on the live right now. Simeon, David wants a taco. Alberto, I'm going to put you down for 0-6. I got you, Alberto. I mean, that is confidence right there. Alberto with an 0-6. Abraham, 4-2. Got you, Abraham. So hopefully things will bounce back for the Dodgers. But with those of you guys on the live, let me know what you guys think of being called sangrones. If you listen to the Bleed Lows podcast, would you like to be referred to as a sangron, or does that just have too much of a negative connotation? Or if you have a better suggestion for your gang name for listening to the Bleed Lows podcast, go ahead and chime in. At this point, I get it, Alberto. The pitching is something that concerns me, but sooner or later they got to turn it around, right? They can't be this inconsistent for this long. Anyways, we want to thank our Bleed Lows podcast contributor, the boatman, Jason Barquero, who always comes in hot. We love his takes. I just want to say that because of Jason, Austin Barnes will probably never come on this show. But that's okay. You know, we love Jason. We love his opinions. We love having him on the show.
I love being here, guys.
Yo ha sido su servidor Juan Ramírez de parte de mi colega, la princesa de Picolandia, and Babyface, and the Boatman. Nos vemos para la próxima. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast has been brought to you by betonline.ag, where the game starts.